Hey, good morning, Elizabeth. How are you today?
I'm great, Greg. Thank you. Nice to be
Great.
here.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for being on GROWL Connects. It's about community, conversations, connections, and something we've been doing for a while. My name's Greg Olson. I'm the founder of GROWL Agency. But more importantly, we have Elizabeth Fogarty here to talk. Why don't you give yourself a quick introduction, Elizabeth, and we'll get started for our listeners.
Thanks, Greg. Hello, Facebook friends and webinar invite.
Yep.
I'm Elizabeth Fogarty, Director at Visit Grand Junction. I've been in this community 2.5 years, having spent 25 years on the Front Range. So it's nice to be on this side of the divide. I feel very fortunate.
Yes, I do too. We came about a little over 3 years ago. We moved Growl here from the Front Range too. So we both are having similar experiences of growth and friendliness, and especially during these times, I think we feel pretty fortunate to be here.
Agree. There's a lot happening on this side,
Yeah.
and it's one of the reasons why I decided to make the move.
Good. Well, we're glad you're here. You're doing great things for the Western Slope. Well, why don't we start a little bit? What's happening at Visit Grand Junction? I don't know if you want to give us any kind of update, cool things happening. I know of some things, but I'll rather have you talk about them because you and your team are been doing a great job. It's a lot of behind the scenes work that, of course, if we live on this side, we don't see much of it. I do see some of the really amazing little the material you had out well, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I can't remember, maybe it was more than that, but beautiful booklet on the valley. I use it for myself as a tourist in my own town, and also to share out to others. But yeah, so tell us a little what's going on.
Yeah, you're talking about our new visitor
There it
guide,
is. Yes.
second edition, Picking on
Yeah.
Moab back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we did a redesign 2 years ago, and then this was a refresh that we launched just a month ago. And we are seeing that residents are using it just as much as the people visiting as well. And that was the intent. So a lot of businesses use it for courting prospective employees. Realtors are using it, obviously, to get people interested in the area. And we we include a lot of local content, local photography and stories from locals. We've added some new content in this edition as well about what it's like to live here, due to the fact that this really has been used as a piece to attract business and new consumers. Aside
Yeah.
from the visitor guide, we've been riffing off of our Roam from Home campaign. So that was a campaign that we launched in the height of the quarantine. So our messaging was very responsible. We said, don't visit right now, but we knew this was an opportunity for the country to learn about Grand Junction. So we were very aggressive with putting out inspirational content that, again, we began and ended with, don't visit now, but take a look at Grand Junction. And it was really a moment of zen for people, a way to escape. And we knew once restrictions started lifting, we could retarget these people and really utilize this as part of a recovery in Grand Junction when tourism was appropriate to then make a direct invite. So that campaign has worked really well. And we think that's why we're pacing 18% ahead of the country in occupancy. We're very careful about that occupancy. We make sure we're only marketing to areas that are responsible. For example, we don't market to cities or counties that have a spike in COVID rates, which is extra work for the team, but
That is a lot. Yeah.
yeah, the health and safety of our community is extremely important to us and our first priority.
Yeah, that's amazing using data, and we'll talk about that as we kind of keep moving forward. Because we've had a few conversations, and what you've brought to this position into all the is the fact that you look at data really well. So I don't really. We've been having like code words for the word COVID. Sometimes they use the word pickle because everybody's tired of the word COVID. There's like trigger words now. So, and unfortunately, we have many, many months ahead of us to deal and manage and lead by example through this. So I think what I'm seeing and hearing with Visit Grand Junction is you are being a leader in this and how you lead by example, considering the community you are in, and it's helping because we're actually up in occupancy, and we're trying to do the right thing. So now that we have a few months under our belts, I guess what you just talked about, you're seeing, maybe you talk a little bit of what you're seeing across the country and what some of your counterparts are seeing and things like that, because now that we're getting into winter, I think we have to kind of readjust and rethink. And I know we have ski areas and we have different tourism things and issues. I have a Powderhorn Pass, and I'm getting out. If no one knows where Powderhorn is, it's in Colorado, Grand Mesa. Lovely ski area, but now they're actually communicating to me as a pass holder the different changes they're going to be doing to make it safe and enjoyable. So I don't know, I just want to see any points that you're seeing from you and your counterparts.
Yeah, some of the data is shifting in a somewhat surprising way. There's research just from last week, so this is taking into account the recent spikes across the country with COVID. Destination Analysts did a survey, and last week the results stated that the national economy is actually the #1 concern of US citizens. And second to that are friends and family getting COVID. And third is ourselves getting COVID. So I think that's a really interesting dichotomy. And sometimes we focus almost too much on COVID, thinking that's the #1 problem in our country, and then we overthink it and almost complicate our marketing efforts. So we certainly have to acknowledge COVID and present to both residents and visitors what protocols we have in our community. But it's good to know it's not #1. And especially with the election coming, people are going to be looking for an escape. So as of last week, there's been an increase in people scheduling vacations for the next 6 months out. So within 6 months, there's a spike, not dramatic, but people know they're going to want to get away from all the stress. And we've seen even as COVID cases were going down prior to the recent spike, people needed to get away. Travel is a very flexible industry, and it bounces back really easily because travel is really innate to us as humans. We've traveled ever since we walked the earth, so that doesn't go away. So just understanding what consumers want, whether it's in travel or you're a retail store or a restaurant or an activity, there's ways to utilize your own data, but then there's other data, loads of it online that's free. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but if you just take one step at a time, it'll really help with your marketing strategies.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think those are really good points. I think people plan travels. I planned travel last April. There's some trips we didn't take, and trips we did take. I think a lot of us are experiencing outdoor travel, right? I mean, we're spending time in the outdoors, right? There's a lot. I saw some stats on RV sales were up, or camping was up, and bike sales are off the chart of people wanting to spend time doing these things that maybe they never had time to do or didn't take into account. And I think I read articles on Airbnb and VRBO and the pivot, and they thought in the beginning of this it was doom and gloom, and then actually it really took off because people wanted a safer place to stay than maybe hotels or something, or whatever the thinking was. And I really think it was, and we move in kind of another question here, is really about like maybe what advice you have for these communities, and maybe they're coming up trying to pull tourism plans together, and what they should be looking for. And some of it to me is messaging about protocols and safety and things like that. So, I mean, what do we share with these communities and other cities and counties across Colorado and the United States? What should they be looking at or thinking about?
Sure. Certainly leading with the COVID protocols which are within the community is what consumers would like. They don't spend an inordinate amount of time reading it, so it just needs to be short and concise. Everyone's been well educated about COVID since March. So the top 3 things consumers want, and this research was confirmed last week as well, is mask wearing, social distancing within the venue, and then limiting of occupancy. So this, again, is regardless of retail, restaurant, hotel. Those are the top 3 things. So if you just lead with that, make it quick, They then want to know more about you and what value you're offering. From a road trip standpoint, the radius keeps increasing, which is fantastic. So spring, early summer, the radius was about 150 miles for road trips. We're now at averaging 500 miles. So that's about 7-8 hours. We're in Grand Junction, so that's to Vegas. Doesn't seem that far, and people are utilizing these road trips more and more to visit multiple destinations, visit areas that they've never been before. I think a lot of our bucket list destinations, places we've never been, but they were super aspirational. We've pulled back a little bit, and we're staying closer to home. Not just because of maybe certain state restrictions that are in place, but we just feel more comfortable knowing our surroundings. So from a marketing strategy standpoint, think about retargeting your consumers that have been to your business already. They're likely to come back if you offer them a new experience they haven't utilized before, or just reinforce what things they do like.
Yeah.
But we're looking for things that are comfortable and familiar, but we also want a new experience as well.
Yeah, I'm noticing it. I know you are living in the Western Slope. We have friends throughout the community, whether it's, Grand Junction or Palisade, or I live in Fruita, so I think you're right. We're seeing tourism from all over. I mean, Utah, Nevada, California, Front Range and beyond. I look at license plates all the time, probably like you do when I drive in. I'm like, kind of see from all over the place, right? So I think it is true. They're like visiting Fruita versus Bali right now, right? Because
Right.
one is it's on their bucket list, and things they want to do and experience. And so all these new camping trailers and mountain bikes, they have to go somewhere with them. So I think it's great. So obviously they're getting great information online. They're finding Western Slope, because I know you guys do such a great job with messaging and kind of supporting what is available and where to go and how to enjoy it. So I do like those 3 tips. I think I know most state organizations, health organizations, county have free like messaging that these communities can use. They can download posters that businesses can use. They don't have to kind of continually try to figure out how to redesign or repurpose. But let's move on to something I've been reading about was armchair travel experiences. So recently article I read was I found there's actually a lift in virtual tourism. I've never really heard that. It was more what I thought. I was just Googling around one day and like learning about beaches and places I would probably never go to, but there's actually a thing that right now, they're actually, I don't know if it's a marketing term, I'm not sure, but armchair travel experiences. So what are your thoughts on this? And, how do people get involved, or how are we marketing to these people that are just sitting at home and waiting until they want to, come into these communities or areas?
Yeah, this has been interesting as well, because when virtual reality first launched many years ago, it had a really big spike. And then there was all this conversation that people were going to do that instead of travel, which I never agreed with, but there was a little bit of nervousness in the industry. And then it just really leveled off. It was more of marketing around this new virtual reality, whether it was through goggles or your phone. But you're right, Greg. Now it's spiking again for obvious reasons. People are home really seeking inspirational content to plan their next vacation. And that's the key. Of course, we will, sit home and watch videos of other destinations, but even subliminally, you're thinking about, do I want to visit there? And if so, why? Another interesting thing that's happening with this armchair tourism is there's new businesses popping up around it. So there's travel companies that actually super economical, but you literally buy the plane ticket on your route, whether it's 2 hours or 6 hours, you watch a video of where you're going. And then when you get off the plane, they take you on that tour that you just did from your plane seat, or you could have watched it at home on your lounge chair, as we say. So yeah, there's definitely been a spike, not surprising, but there's ways to reinvent it since it last launched a while ago.
Yeah, I am seeing like interesting ways of marketing where, certain communities or even like, hotels or motels or people are actually signing up and sending them like a care package and something you open up, and there's things in that you might experience in that town as they try to attract in. It's probably more geared toward travel, people scheduling travel for other businesses and things like that, although it's just trying to connect to people in an interesting way, right, to get them on a bucket list. So maybe 6 months from now they decide, oh, I want to take that trip, as they're doing I'm kind of doing armchair tourism now too, because I'm like, what's beyond my 500-mile radius that we might want to do, or my 5,000-mile radius, or whatever that is. So there is a lot of that armchair travel experience. And I heard of virtual, that's kind of a big word. Now I just read that article on armchair. So I am, another thing that we have to consider as we market to people. We do seem to have a lot of eyeballs. I don't know so maybe let's jump into data. How are you seeing? We see a lot more people engaging with content for our clients. We're using podcasts, as you and I have talked about. We're using different kinds of webinar. We're using even direct mail more than we have. The one part is trying to figure out what their home address is for businesses, because a lot we'll do B2B, but there's ways that we are finding those kind of key ways where people are interested in actually opening up a magazine or something of value that they can engage in, and then going to a digital experience. And so I find a little bit more than ever. So I don't know, what are you seeing in data? And maybe walk us through a little bit, keep us below the PhD level though, okay, for our listeners. I know it's hard for you, but I know you do a great job. I've seen you speak many times and sharing data. So, that's why I love having you on our show to talk about it. So yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Before I talk about data, you mentioned some marketing materials. So yeah. I'll share that one of we'll call it guerrilla marketing campaigns, but it's more traditional. We spend most of our time in really progressive, as you said, data managed digital campaigns, from Google AdWords to ad tech. But during the quarantine, at the height of it, we still wanted to reach people, and it really wasn't to attract people to Grand Junction at the time. It was to just provide a service. We were helping the community to a large degree with all the other amazing organizations in our community, but we still wanted to spread some good cheer despite the stress people were under. So we are continuing to do this. Almost every e-newsletter we send out, either with Colorado Tourism Office or ourselves, we offer people a postcard, and we created a little jingle around it that, no one loves getting mail except when you get a beautiful postcard from somewhere. And we offered to send postcards, and we're up to tens of thousands of postcards that we've sent out, all images from local photographers once again. And we stamp the backside with some, rubber stamps with taglines. And it's just to say hello. And, we know it'll likely go on the fridge, or they just had a moment of joy because they got something nice in the mail. So again, don't overthink some of the marketing strategies that you're overwhelmed by. Sometimes those simple things can really grow into something tremendous. And it's all about inspiration. That's the first step in the funnel, right? So you have to let people know who you are and what you do. And then just be patient. Later is the conversion. But there's a lot of ways to do inspirational marketing really affordably. Yeah. And we give these postcards out at our visitor center as well. It's why we riffed off of it. So pre-COVID, anyone that comes to our visitor center gets a free stamped postcard. So literally they fill it out, we mail it for them, no cost to them for the postcard or the stamp. So yeah, really.
I love that idea. Sorry, I'm excited. You and I get excited. We have to talk because we're like, yeah. I mean, did you know it was going to take off like that when you or your team was talking? Because you had these postcards and you started mailing them. Did you think it was going to be that much of a guerrilla campaign or something when you started it?
Yeah, you always hope. So I think we tempered, we try to be reasonable and cautious, but we were really excited when it took off, and it continues to. And we also have contests going on, and of course, sign up for our e-newsletter. And, if you're sending someone a postcard, it's more likely they're going to say yes to an e-newsletter because they feel like they're receiving something of value as opposed to another email in their inbox. They just kind of lean into everything you're offering because you're already leading with, it's about you as the consumer. We're not just trying to get your email to show up in your inbox. So we've gotten not just a lot of postcards out the door, but a tremendous amount of new e-newsletter signups, which is always a
Yeah, and
goal.
that is amazing. And I think, same thing is like, I think that consistency, as we talk about marketing here, and then we'll get into the data, but I think what I talk to people about, and you do too, is just, be consistent on something and try. And you have to be patient for the conversion, right? And I think we've seen it even in GROWL. I mean, our team does a great job we do coloring pages every month, right? Who knew that was going to take off? But now we have people giving us
I
ideas
love
for
that.
coloring pages, right? I mean, so you can, growlagency.com/color, and I see them, and I've actually colored. We do little contests. Of course, if you're a designer, you have to be pretty exact. I color out of lines. I think it's perfectly fine and normal. It's like a psychology test internally, right? But we do we do playlists, and we've gotten these ideas from others too, monthly playlists, right? And so I think there's just new ways that people want to learn about you. Like same, they want to learn about Visit Grand Junction, and you're giving them a new way to learn about who you are, right? And who we are. I mean, and I think I think the postcard is just an amazing idea because something's a beautiful picture. It's hard to throw that away, right? And then you can get more beautiful pictures online. You can learn more. It's actually real. So I might take that one and we'll put that in our back pocket for something later. But
yeah, absolutely. We love to share.
Yeah. Okay, should we talk about data? Is everybody awake online? Get ready, take a big sip of coffee, everybody, or whatever your morning poison is. I think this is one of my one topic that we drive with also with our clients. It's hard to make decisions or have strategy, as you know, without always looking at data. And I'm sure something you look at. You've mentioned it through the whole conversation in the last 20 minutes. You've mentioned data. I don't know, I was trying to lost count actually, because you actually take a look at it, what's happening out there. So I'll just let you take it wherever you want from here. I have a few comments and questions, so go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Feel free to jump in. One of the questions we get most often, of course, is what destinations are trending, who's coming the most? And that means you're going to double down on that destination. And for us, that's not really our strategy. We look at length of stay. So for example, Salt Lake City is the most popular out-of-state destination inbound to Grand Junction. However, Boise has a longer length of stay. So we don't ignore Salt Lake City, but from a destination management standpoint and protecting the quality of life that those of us as residents moved here for, we need to be mindful of tourism and the impact it has to our quality of life as residents. And one of the ways we do that is focusing on destinations that have a longer length of stay and destinations that we see from a data standpoint can grow their length of stay. So they may start off at 1 or 2 nights, but our data will tell us based on how we're messaging if they are growing to 3 or 4 nights, which is our goal. So that's one of the significant data points that we monitor. Not everything goes through that filter, but we have a limited budget just like everyone. So with the limited budget and limited opportunity to deploy ads, we have to be cognizant of where the highest ROI is. We also research destinations that may not know us, but have a propensity to like outdoor recreation or art, because downtown Grand Junction has 100 high-end sculptures lining the sidewalks. It's beautiful. So we use these behaviors to our advantage as well. When I arrived here 2.5 years ago, I knew Chicago was an opportunity based on this data. We doubled down on Chicago to the point where United actually we got their attention, and that's why they started that once a week flight. And Albuquerque is another city that's trending for us. It wasn't on anyone's radar, but we see the behavioral responses to our marketing and the conversion. And we do this through retargeting measures as well. So for example, if we send out in Facebook ad, let's it and watch more than 50% of the video we served up, or they spent at least 2 minutes on the blog page, and then they stop, we'll retarget them and then funnel in based on their behaviors. Are they a mountain biker? Are they a lover of arts or theater? And this is anonymized data, of course, but this information is available to everyone. And if you utilize it for your marketing practice, it certainly increases your revenue for whatever you're selling. Also from a data standpoint, and I think this one's easy for businesses to do as well. The hardest part is that first time when you walk into that data, but it's really not that difficult. And I would say it's the number one thing marketers do wrong, regardless of industry, is they talk about themselves and they have data that tells them about their consumers. So let's just say car dealership. They send out e-newsletters all the time. Well, if someone just bought a car or leased a car, don't send them any newsletter about why they should buy a car. They have the data already of who bought the cars. Remove them from the email list and maybe put them in different groups of emails. Maybe it's time for their service on their car, or maybe there's a holiday coming up and you can sell cool amenities around that brand, whether if it's a Mercedes or a BMW, Ferrari. Those are brands where people like to collect cups and floor, whatever those things are you put on your floor. So get to know your consumer. You have a lot of this data already. It's not like you have to purchase it. It just takes a little bit of time to mine through it. And at the end of the day, marketing is about creating relationships. So I think it's easy for the critics on the outside to say marketing is tracking people and it's unethical. First and foremost, you can shut it down if you want. Second of all, this era we're in is the most responsible marketing that's ever existed, because we have data to speak to consumers the way they want to be spoken to. So I receive ads that are appropriate for my lifestyle and make my life easier. I appreciate that. And if I receive an ad I don't want, I can provide that feedback within one click. So I think the industry doesn't lead enough with that messaging, because we're being more responsible than ever.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think data can be used correctly to find those gaps for businesses where they can sell their products and services that maybe competitors are, can be surrounded. I don't know if you're where there's a somewhat of that blue ocean strategy, but we can definitely find, I think in tourism, or you're selling nuts and bolts or automobiles, there's certain ways that you can use data to find the right way to market and message and what people are searching for, and then be much more effective in that, and much more cost effective, I guess, on your conversions. And we won't spend too much time on that. It's a whole nother talk that you and I could give, probably multi-day talk on data and conversions. But I think everything you're saying, is on point. If we treat people like people, and you have, you're talking in a relevant way, like why don't, if I'm always interested in Toyota, but you keep trying to sell me a different car or something, or maybe I'm only a truck guy, but you try selling me a sports car. I don't know. I think it kind of turns you off a little bit. But if you start talking to me in a relevant manner, then I get more excited about who you are. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think we continue. I think now during COVID, it's an even more important, I'm sure, for you and your team, as you look at all these data points it's one of the things you mentioned at the very beginning, because you're looking at now, it's amazing to me, you have to spend that much time, of course, looking in areas that you're marketing to turn off your marketing if there's spikes in cases. And so now I think, it's one of those things that you have to, as a marketer, spend more time on, especially in tourism. So kudos to you and your team for doing that. And I'm sure you can teach a lot of people a lot of things. Well, I think we're about ready to close out. I thank you for taking so much time today. I know we've had a lot of listeners on, both on the web here and on Facebook Live. What I wanted to do is kind of end with a couple tips maybe you can give us that you haven't spoken about yet, or just a recap for our listeners, and we'll close out the show.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. It's been great being here with you. I appreciate the invite. Sure. Yeah, a few tricks. We love sharing tips and tricks with everyone. So I'll reference a few examples to make it easier to relate to. If you haven't seen the viral videos about Chipotle and the lid flip challenge, check it out. Primarily lived on TikTok, which I'm a big fan of. Our DMO is on TikTok, and we think we may have been one of the first in the country to get on. Check it out. And the example is, think about ways to experience the brand, your brand, with the consumer. So it literally was a simple video of one of the Chipotle team members putting a lid on the Chipotle tray. And the first time I saw it, I thought there must be something more to this that went viral. There was nothing more to it. It was quite simple. And then Chipotle obviously tweeted it out and pushed it out on TikTok and the other social channels as well.
Sure.
And everybody was now, consumers were doing their own lid flip. And they had the biggest sales day ever in the history of Chipotle from that little video. So again, just think about things maybe your team does that's fun or innovative, and then put it out there on social. It might not go viral, but it still creates a relationship with the consumers that you're talking with outside your business. Another good tip is go to reallygoodemails.com. You can put in any topic you want, regardless of what industry, and it gives you examples of well thought out, well designed emails, and it gives you the code as well. So even if you're using MailChimp, you still could review those and just get other ideas, because it takes a lot of time to, in the past, you know, I'd sign up for a ton of emails to make sure I was being exposed to lots of things. Reallygoodemails.com is a great one.
Love that tip.
My next favorite one is Answer the Public. So go to answerthepublic.com. It's amazing. You put in any topic and it tells you what questions and conversations are happening online. So let's say you own a gelato shop. You type in gelato and it tells you what people want, what they're asking for. It's like a who, what, where, when, why circle. And then you click on those inquiries or phrases, and then it gives you even more information via Google, of course. So that's a really good tip as well.
Wow. Those are two I haven't heard of. Ask the Public. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. And reposting user-generated content. I think a lot of people are doing this now, but represent your brand through your consumers. So the photo should not be perfect. It's better if it's imperfect. It's more trustworthy that way. You can ask in your social channels for people to share photos of anything. I mean, if you own a really niche store in downtown Grand Junction, there may not be an opportunity to say, show a photo of you wearing this glove or whatever, but say, what's your, you know, we're located in Grand Junction, what's your favorite Colorado experience? You're going to get a ton of traffic because lots of people have been to Colorado. So it doesn't have to be about you all the time when you message out, just make it relatable to your brand. And with holidays coming up, gift cards are becoming more and more popular, not just because of the holidays, but COVID. So set up a gift card program where people can purchase gift cards from you. It's a great revenue source. And then you get people returning either to your store or your online store. But brick and mortar is still where it's at. Pre-COVID, online sales, retail sales were still only 13.9%. And it's been that number for a long time. And China, who's the #1 digital retailer in the world, is only 15.3%. So brick and mortar stores are still where we entertain ourselves. Shopping's the #1 entertainment in the world. So, you know, be optimistic about that.
Yeah, I agree with you and what I'm seeing on that. I think stores seem busier than ever, especially on the Western Slope. And I know that this whole winter is coming, COVID and things like that. Oh, people want to get out, even during COVID when things were shut down. I mean, you saw lots of people at Walmarts and Targets and wanting to go in and shop and get out of their house and even more. So I think that there's a perfect example of you know, people wanting to experience a brand, a local brand and things like that. So These are wonderful tips. I, again, appreciate your time, Elizabeth, and all that you and your team are doing to create awareness in the tourism industry and what you're doing for the Western Slope, and continue to help us grow and help our businesses do everything they can during all of this. So a big shout out and a big high five. That's what I do, like that. So yeah, okay. Thank you again. I look forward to catching up with you in the near future.
Thanks, Greg.
All
Appreciate
right.
being here. Take care.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.